Meal planning can feel like a mountain to climb for anyone. But if you also have ADHD, it can be that much harder. It's so easy to get overwhelmed by all the choices and then get distracted so easily. But what if I told you there are some tried and true things you can do to make it more manageable and you can stick to this habit? Well, now, first, let's start with what I call the big three. These are the three biggest hurdles that most people with ADHD are going to face when it comes to meal planning. Number one, that's impulsivity and distraction. People with ADHD are 4 times more likely to impulse buy. That means you might go into the grocery store for some milk and leave with 5 bags of snacks and no actual dinner ingredients. This is totally a thing, has happened to me many times. The second thing is executive function struggles. That sounds really big, but basically, meal planning takes a lot of steps. You got to choose the meals, you got to make a list, you got to remember to bring it to the grocery store. Then, after the grocery shopping, you still have to actually cook the dang meals. Well, with ADHD, this can get very overwhelming and it can lead to last minute fast food or takeout versus actually doing the cooking of the food that you planned. So the last one is really, this one is kind of it. Not everyone that has ADHD has the exact same symptoms or the exact same struggles, but those with ADHD tend to get overloaded, especially when it comes to sensory. So when you think about it, grocery stores, it's chaos, okay? There are bright lights, there's loud noises, mine is always freezing. And then there's like a zillion choices on every single item on your list. So it's just very, very easy to get overwhelmed, to just, ooh, I don't want to make any decisions at all. So it's so easy to get distracted while you're there too. And you forget what you need and you just have that mental draining. And then you want to check out and just get out because you can't handle it. So all of those things, maybe just one of those bothers you, maybe all of them bother you, but I've got some great tips for that. And now that we know what the big problem areas are, let's come. I've got it broken down into 10 steps. Now, some of them may be, home runs for you, others not so much. So I want you to take the tips that help you and maybe try the other ones that you're unsure of because you never know. One of these tips could be the secret to your success. And you know what? It can't hurt to try it because what do you have to lose? Are you just not going to meal plan? Well, I probably wasn't going to do it anyway, right? Now, I was one of those that didn't get officially diagnosed with ADHD until I was an adult. I don't know if it would have been any easier if I was diagnosed as a child. I'm not sure. But I do know that because I had certain teachers and the way that my parents taught me how to cope and to function, I have been able to, I don't want to say like high performing, but I have been able to turn my ADHD into more of a superpower and not a hindrance. And these are some of the tricks that I have learned along the way that really help, and I hope that they help you. The first one is get visual. Most people, when they meal plan, they write it down. It is a list, a jumble of words. Well, my brain does not process that so well. I have to get visual. Okay. So, this is one of the reasons when you look at my meal plan, you will typically see pictures of the ingredients and they're right there with it because then I can just very visually quick look at the recipe and go, oh, I got all those. I'm good. I don't have to read the whole thing. It's just a whole thing because if I read the whole thing, it's going to make me think about other things and then I'm going to get distracted. If I keep it visual, my brain goes, yep, bunk, 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 bunk. We're good. So try to get visual. You could do this like a vision board where you do like pictures of the meal plans. There's so many options here. You just have to find the right one for you. Tip number 2 is small, manageable steps. Now, personally, I was one of those that once I started doing meal planning, I was like, oh, I got this week down. I'm going to go big. I want to meal plan for a whole month or for a whole quarter or a whole year. We're just going to go crazy. Well, I found out that I could make a meal plan work for like 2 to 3 days or for a week. But once it got bigger than that, I could not do it. I couldn't stick to it. It got too confusing in my brain. So I just want to give you the option of don't try to plan 2 weeks or a month if it's overwhelming. Try the smaller chunks. try, if a week is too long, try 2 to 3 days. Okay. And another way that you can do this is you can make yourself a step-by-step list of meal planning. So that way, every week you just work the steps and you don't have to really think ahead of what I have to do next. You're just checking off boxes. And I personally get so much like satisfaction when I'm going through a list, when I'm working it and I'm checking off each of the ones I do. Not only am I staying on task, but it's motivating me to get to that next task. Now, if you've seen the menus that I post online, they're pretty big. And honestly, there's probably about 13, 14 steps that go into that process. And some of them can just take a few minutes, some of them take longer. But I'm telling you, breaking it down into that step by step list gives me built in stopping points where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to get this one step done and then I'm going to go take a break. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to knock out a couple more steps and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a break because I'm planning those natural breaks in there. And then that gives my brain, I just got to focus for just enough to get through this first step. And then I feel like I'm more likely to start maybe doing one step right now. And then the next time I sit down, maybe I'll knock out 2 to 3 steps. And it's just so motivating, but it's also manageable. So consider that one. Now, not everybody, but most people with ADHD tend to have a hyper focus. This can be related to like certain ingredients or ways to cook, like using an air fryer. And so I want you to lean into those times of hyper focus and use them to your advantage. Okay. Now you can do this by batch cooking or make a whole week of meals using that exact same method. So really, this is one of those, instead of fighting your brain's natural instincts, I want you to really lean into them and use them like a superpower. Now, what would this look like? Okay. So when it comes to a hyper focus on ingredients, like I almost am obsessed right now with different flavors. Like right now it is Caesar salad dressing. So of course I can have a Caesar salad. I can make a wrap. I can use Caesar salad dressing as a sauce for a pasta. Or I can even bake chicken in Caesar salad dressing and have it as just a really flavorful chicken. See, I'm hyper focusing on that ingredient, but I'm using it in multiple different meals. So I get that little dopamine hit because I'm really, excited when I get that flavor. But instead of just having the same meal over and over again, I'm switching it up. Now, the other way of that is I go through periods of time where I really like to use my air fryer. And so, like, every night, I'm going to have a different meal with an air fryer. Now, other times I get into like grilling or baking. And so, what I do is if I know that that's where I'm leaning, I just go ahead and lean there. I just work with what I already feel. Now, another thing you can do is batch cooking. So, if you're really hyper focused, say that you're really in the mood to make pancakes. Well, let's go ahead and make 3 or 4 batches of pancakes, different flavors, different options. And then, of course, we're not going to eat them all in one day. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze them and then put them in my freezer. Of course, I'm going to mark them and put what they are. And then now I've got pancakes for the next couple of months and I don't have to worry about it. And then the next time I feel the urge to do a little batch cooking, it might be something else. And I will say that I will not batch cook things unless I know for sure that everybody loves them. So you may just want to test out small versions of recipes first. Once you know that you love them, then batch cook them. Tip number 4 is to automate and simplify. And that sounds a little crazy, but basically it's having a set of go-to meals that require little thought and always are stocked in your pantry and freezer. So making your brain work less sometimes is what makes you get more done. Okay. Now I have lists of different meals that my family loves. So that way when I'm sitting down to meal plan and I kind of get stuck, like, oh, I need to use chicken, but I can't remember what chicken recipes we like. I can just go to my meal planner, go to the section, and it will just have a list of all of the chicken dishes that we love. So then that way I can just go through there and pick the one that works, and I don't have to really think. Sometimes I call this my game show moment that, when you're in the thick of it and you're like, okay, this is the question. you have that moment where like, you know the answer, but you can't get it out. It's just not computing. And so I like to prepare ahead of time. So that way I have all the answers and I can just go look at them real quick and pull my answer. Now, another option that people do really well with is having theme nights. That could be like your Taco Tuesday, your Pizza Friday, your Pasta Wednesday. And then this way, your brain knows, okay, I need one pasta dish, I need one taco dish, I need one pizza dish. And it just makes your choices less. And then my brain feels like it can work better. And also, this really kind of eases up like the stressfulness of meal planning, and it really helps. Now, I do have a free workbook that I created that really helps you automate and simplify these things. And there's a whole lot more to it, but what I'll do is I don't want to get off track because we can talk about this forever. So I will put that at the end of the video and let's get back to the tips so I can stay on track. So did you notice what I just did there? I had to remind myself to stay on track because if I just go with how my brain's going, I'm going to jump from task to task to task and I'm not going to stay on track. So that's where those steps come in. But also, I am a huge fan of reminders and for timers. And you can set them for things like grocery shopping and meal prepping, and even when to start a slow cooker or defrost meat. And these little timers and like reminders are what not only keep you on track, but also kind of trigger you into that next step. Now, one of the things that I'm working on personally is I am usually pretty forgetful about defrosting meat. But what I'm not forgetful about is prepping the coffee pot for coffee the next morning. I'm really good about before I go to bed, I make sure coffee's set and ready so I have hot and ready coffee in the morning. So, since that habit is already established, what I've done is when I go to set up my coffee maker, I'm going to go ahead and go, oh, wait a minute, I'm right here. I'm in the kitchen. The freezer's right there. This is the time to go grab that meat, put it in the fridge so it can defrost. And that has made a huge difference for me. But another trigger that I do is I start cooking every night at 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday, on the weekends, on school breaks, on holidays, everything. I always cook at 5 o'clock. And this is one of those things where my work day, because I work at home, I go straight from, I end work at 5, I go cook. I don't really have anything in between there because then it just helps me transition. And then it doesn't really matter if I'm just going to make a 20-minute meal or maybe something that takes a little bit longer. I'm going to dedicate a whole hour just to my kitchen. Okay. And so I'm not only cooking dinner, but I'm going to be cleaning. I'm going to be washing and unloading the dishwasher. This would be a great time if I have an extra 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and clean out my fridge. And it's kind of a hyper focus because I'm giving myself permission 1 hour every day that's going to be involved in my kitchen. And sometimes all I get done is dinner, and that's fine. But other times, I'm sweeping, I'm mopping, I'm, cleaning behind the refrigerator, whatever it is. But I know I have that 1 hour every single day. This one was actually one of the first clues that I might have ADHD. So I realized pretty early on that I have to have built in reward systems. And so a reward can be anything. Like personally for me, I'm going to usually aim for like a treat. Okay. And that's kind of goes back to that whole dopamine thing. But I'm a sweet tooth. I love especially like little chocolates and stuff. And my husband bought me this bag of like the little Dove chocolate hearts. So for the longest time, as soon as I stepped into my kitchen at 5 o'clock, the first thing I would do is get a piece of chocolate. Okay. So I get that piece of chocolate, I get the dopamine hit, and then it's like, yes, now I can get my kitchen work done. So I suggest find out some type of reward system and use that to your advantage. Now, other things that I do is, okay, I'm going to finish up my work. And as soon as I finish up this step, I'm going to go get myself a cup of coffee. And so I tie my rewards into my tasks. So this is something, it takes a little practice, but once you figure out like what's really going to like trigger your brain into a good spot, use it to your advantage. Now, most people with ADHD, they either struggle with impulsivity or they're just super forgetful. Like some people are both, but I'm one of those. I don't necessarily have an impulse control problem, but what I do have is kind of like a forgetfulness. And my thing is, I forget to eat breakfast and lunch. Like I always remember dinner because it's already tied to a system. But I work at home, and honestly, I'm so busy in the morning trying to get my kids off to school on time, and then from there, I'm trying to work. So there's a lot of times that if my husband didn't like bring me breakfast to my office or sometimes bring me lunch, I just wouldn't eat. And that's not really a great thing. So what I started doing is in my fridge and even in like on my countertop, I have a grab and go section. It is pre-portioned snacks or meals that at any time I can just go grab them. A lot of times I bring them back to my office so I can keep working. But this helps so much. It also helps that, so if I'm hungry, especially at lunch, so I go out to the fridge and I start looking and I'm like, ooh, this sounds good. This sounds good. And I put it all together. And then I realize, oh my goodness, I just used part of what I needed for dinner. Okay. And that's not exactly helpful when you're trying to stick to that meal plan. So what I do instead is now I make like little to go boxes in my fridge so that way I can just grab the box, heat it up, or maybe it's like a little snack box, and then boom, it's ready to go. And this helps me keep, from accidentally using ingredients that I had planned on using later, but I just didn't remember at the moment. So this is one of those that I don't necessarily know that everybody would use, but it definitely helps me. Now, number 8 is incorporate variety. And this gets a little confusing because we like to do things over and over and over again. And but at the same time, we want variety. So how do you do the same things over and over again but have variety? And basically, our brains just get bored really easily. So sometimes if we vary the meals slightly, but stick to basic formulas, we can keep everything fresh in our mind and not have to do any complex planning. And so that's confusing. I know I'm not explaining that well. Okay. I like really good base meals. Okay. Think of things like tacos or rice bowls or one pot pastas. Okay. These meals, the base of the meal stays pretty much the same, but we can mix it up by using different toppings, different sauce, different seasonings. So it's a way to keep everything the same, but then also make it variable or add variety to it because we can mix and match things. And you'll notice that a lot of the recipes that I post on my website and on here are base formulas. They're formulas where you can switch ingredients out, you can switch out the protein, you can switch out the vegetable, you can even switch out the seasoning and the sauces. And that's how my brain keeps it fresh, but also makes it easy because I already know how to make these recipes because I've made it a zillion times. So you may want to try to figure that out as well. Now, all my life, I have seen people write out grocery lists, and it's usually like on a card, and it's just a straight list of everything that they think of bread, onions, milk, whatever. And I've seen that, and I just figured that was the normal way to make a grocery list. And maybe that is, I don't know. But I have found that if I go to the store with a list like that, I want to go in order. So if the first thing on my list is milk, I'm going to go all the way to the back of the store and I'm going to get milk. Even though I know in my brain it probably makes sense to grab milk at the end because of temperature control. Okay. The next item is bread. So now I'm going to go back all the way back across the store and get bread. Okay. The next item is onions. So I'm going to turn around and go back to the produce section and get onions because my brain likes lists. I like to do things in order. So for me, and you'll notice it on the meal plans, I separate out everything by categories. I have a produce section, I have a pantry section, I have a meat section, I have a dairy section, and then it's just all nice categories because this way I can go to the produce department, buy everything I need in the produce department, cross it off, and then go on to the next section. And this will help me to be more efficient because I'm going to start at one side and I'm going to go around the store and I don't have to double back because I'm not leaving that section until I have that category completely checked off. So that's one way. But I have met other people that like to color code their lists. So they have that long list and then they go back and they use different colored highlighters and they highlight all of the produce in purple or all of the protein in green. And that's kind of the same thing, But you just have to figure out what makes your brain work in the most efficient and quickest manner. Because personally, I know the longer I stay in a grocery store, the longer I take as far as like doubling back and tripling back. If I see that item 3 or 4 times, I want it, and I am going to be more likely to impulse buy. And we already know that impulsivity can be a problem. So we want to get in the grocery store and out of the grocery store with everything on our list as quickly as possible, but also do it where it's not as stressful. And I find jumping around on my list is kind of stressful. So sticking to my list, sticking to my plan, doing it in a quick manner, that's not as stressful as running all over the store. Number 10. Okay, we all have bad days. We have like bad brain days. Yesterday, I had to be on the phone with my health insurance and the state of Georgia for like hours. And honestly, even though I was still accomplishing tasks, my brain hurt. Okay, it was so hard to concentrate. I was like hyperactive. I couldn't calm down. I was just literally having an issue. Okay. And this would have been the perfect night to use a fallback meal. Okay. These are super easy, minimal effort meals. A friend of mine calls them the no spoon meals. But basically, they're things like frozen pizza, frozen rice, instant rice. Maybe it's even just scrambled eggs. We have a couple things like sometimes we find like the preformed hamburgers. They're already done. They're in the freezer. You can pull out however many you like. So last night I made hamburgers. It was super, super simple. And I didn't really have to think because there's not much thinking involved in making a hamburger. You take the patties out, you put seasoning on, and you put them in a pan and you let them fry. And that's all I needed to do. And I also did tater tots because, that's just easy. So what I'm saying though is that have a list of fallback meals. Put it on your fridge, put it on your freezer. These are items that you just kind of stock up on and you keep them for those bad days or crazy busy days or just mental energy is not there days. And then you don't have to feel guilty about eating cereal for dinner or, ordering takeout because you have fallback meals right there that you can eat at any time on those bad days. Now, I do try to remind myself that I'm not going to just eat frozen pizza tonight because it sounds good. I'm going to save that until it's a need. Okay. Because otherwise, then I'm just going to eat frozen pizza every night. And I want to try to eat as many, healthy and nutritious meals as possible. So I don't let myself feel guilty because I'm only eating them on the nights that are crazy busy, bad brain days, those kind of things. And then it's like, oh, well, we're having corn dogs. But you know what? Mom's brain's working, so we're good. Okay, so I hope that some of these, maybe all of these tips help you. I just really wanted to show you 10 different items that have really helped me along the way. And it's funny because as this video gets longer, it's harder to focus. So I apologize. So if I sounded a little bouncy, that's why. But I will say that now I can tell you about the meal planning starter kit. Now, this is aimed more for beginners, those that are at the beginning of their meal planning journey. But I really think this is perfect for those with ADHD. Why? Because I have ADHD and I made it. And these are items that I find that really help me to focus and prepare. And so, really, we talked about like the game show brain and how, as I'm meal planning, I hit these little roadblocks where it's just hard to think. I get that game show moment and then I feel frustrated. And when I feel frustrated, I just want to quit. I'm not one of those that wants to like push through it all the time. Sometimes if I'm just having a bad day and I feel stuck, I'm just going to give up. I just will. I know that's my tendency, but by preparing and having all the informations and the visual cues at my fingertips, it will trigger me to remember the answer that I want, and it'll actually motivate me to keep going. So this whole workbook is just a spot for you to keep all the information. We're talking inventories, how to set a food budget, food preferences, favorite meal list. It's everything that you need, and it's totally free. All you have to do, I'm going to put a link down below. You click the link, you put in your email address, it's going to send you an email. It's going to say, do you want to subscribe to my email list? You say yes, and then you get the book. I would love for you to stick on my email list, but you know what? If you don't want to, get my weekly newsletter, that's totally fine. Get the book and then unsubscribe. I will not be mad. And then I want you to let me know down below, what did you think of these 10 tips for ADHD? Do you think any of these might help you? Let me know which one you're going to try, and then make sure that you follow along for more helpful tricks when it comes to meal planning. Not just ADHD meal planning tricks, but all around meal planning tricks. Okay, see you later. Bye.